If you are listening to or watching this podcast, you probably fall into one of two groups. Either you're a big giant dork for home and garage gym stuff like me, or you're looking to build your home and garage gym. And whether it's your first or second time, you're doing your research to make sure that you don't waste your money. And there's a fine line between getting buried deep into looking at too much stuff and not wasting your money. So we're going to talk about today on the GymCrafter podcast, how to walk the line between overanalysis and not wasting money. Welcome back to the GymCrafter podcast, everybody. My name is Tim. I'm the head gym nerd here at GymCrafter.com, the website that I built to help ordinary folks build home and garage gyms that they absolutely love. And thank you for tuning in once again. I really appreciate all you guys tuning in and all the listens that I get and all the comments that I get. So thank you so much for that. It keeps me coming back every week and recording these episodes because you let me know that they're helping. So as long as I know that they're helping, I'm going to keep making them. As usual, if you like the video, like it. If you want to watch more of them, subscribe. If you want to know when they're coming out, hit the bell. All that annoying YouTube stuff that the algorithm makes me say on every episode. But if I don't say it, you don't do it. So hit the little thumbs up thing down there and see what number like you are. But let's get into the episode today. We're going to start with a training update, and as you guys know, I'm training for weight loss right now, and I've started a second round of John Russin's functional power training, which I absolutely love. If you're looking for a really great program that's going to build a ton of strength, that's it. I'm just trying to maintain strength right now because I am in a calorie deficit. The diet app that I'm using is called Carbon. Really like it. Look back at the past episodes for what I think. But there's a couple things that I want to point out in this episode that I think will really help people. Number one, there are some benefits to losing weight that have nothing to do with how you look. In fact, almost all of the benefits to losing weight have nothing to do with how you look. There comes a point in your life where you kind of go, well, I guess this is how I look. At least most people do, right? So looks aren't really a motivator when things get hard because the older you get, the more you're like, well, I guess I'm just gonna have a dad bod, right? Like the whole acceptance of the dad bod culture out there. And if you're a dad with young kids and you don't have any time to work out, I'm not knocking on you, but there seems to be just an acceptance of I'm just gonna look the way that I look and whatever. That's not why you lose weight. You lose weight for health. And I want to just remind everybody, and I have to, really it's a reminder to myself when it happens. I've lost over 30 pounds. This is my fourth time doing that. And every single time I forget about this particular stage that I'm in right now. I'm well over 20 pounds lost and I feel amazing, right? Like going up and down the stairs is so much easier. I can do more push-ups, I can do more pull-ups, I have more energy, I can run farther, I can run faster, I can jump higher. I still can barely touch the rim in the basketball court, but I can jump a little bit higher. But it's that. And the best, if you haven't ever lost a lot of weight before and you need to, the best analogy that I can give you is go and put on like a 30-pound weight vest and walk around all day and then take it off at the end of the day and just see how much better, you feel better in every respect. Another good analogy I always think about, I go ice skating with my nieces sometimes, and you've got a pair of skates on, even for an hour of an open skate, and then you come and you take those skates off and your feet are like, that's kind of what your body feels like when you shed those extra pounds of fat. So that's where I am right now. My body every morning is like, like my joints hurt less. I guarantee you when I test my testosterone next, it's going to be up hopefully considerably, but boy, do I feel better. The second thing that I wanted to point out, which I haven't pointed out yet on any of these updates, people ask me all the time, how much cardio am I doing to lose that weight? And I'm not doing any cardio right now. I walked 8,000 to 10,000 steps every day because I walk my dogs a couple times a day, and I've got 2 high energy cattle dogs. And if I don't do that, they just put that they need the walk. So for those of you who have high energy dogs out there, you know what I'm talking about. Your dogs bounce off the wall like little crackheads if you don't. So I do that, but that's it. I'm not even, honestly, I used to row a couple days a week. I haven't even been doing that. And I'm just lifting. I'm lifting 6 days a week. Keep in mind that the best way to lose weight is to increase or maintain the number of calories your body burns when you're not in the gym. And when you're in the gym just trying to go, I'm going to burn 900 calories today on the treadmill and I'm going to watch 4 movies and that's how long just stop. It's unsustainable. It's miserable. It's a big part of the reason why people have trouble losing weight. So I'm not doing any cardio. And what'll happen is, and I'm starting to see this a little bit now, is that your body will adapt and it'll adjust to your reduced calories and your activity level, and your weight loss will start to plateau. It always happens. Anybody who's tried to diet before notices it. So I always save a couple of tools whenever I hit those plateaus. And the first one that I'll pull out is going to be like 10 to 15 minute finishers after each of those 6 weight training workouts. And what I'll do is I'll either jump on my bike if it's nice outside, or I'll go upstairs in the rowing machine and I'll just do like 10-minute intervals or 10 minutes of Tabatas. Nothing huge, just a nice high intensity finisher. And I'm pushing myself really hard in those 10, maybe 15 minutes. I'm going as hard as I can. But what I've noticed is that typically will jumpstart that weight loss again, and I still don't have to spend hours on a treadmill or hours on a bike or hours on a rower. Now, I will eventually start adding in longer steady state cardio, but typically not until the last 3 to 5 pounds to go. And what you'll find is if you save that, if you're losing 1.5 pounds a week, which is what the goal is, to sustainable weight loss, that's what I've been hitting, is that when you're down to that last 3 to 5 pounds, that's only 2 to 3 weeks, right? I can jump on a treadmill every morning for an hour for 2 to 3 weeks. I can jump on the rower every morning for an hour for 2 to 3 weeks. It's not a huge deal. It's not my favorite thing in the world to do. I don't want to do it for the whole 24 plus weeks that it's going to take me to lose the weight that I'm trying to lose. And it's definitely not something that I would be able to sustain, but I do save that till the end. But for all of you who have written in emails or asked me in the comments what I'm doing for cardio, there's your answer. I am not. You really can lose weight without doing cardio. Cardio is probably, honestly, of all of the things that you can do to lose weight, cardio is probably the least effective one. And unfortunately, most people think it's the most effective. So if you're struggling with that, change things up, get rid of the cardio, get back in the gym, get under the bar, and I promise you that it'll work out a whole lot better. And as they always say, you cannot train a bad diet, so that Carbon Diet app has been keeping me in track, and I really like it. I really actually like that app. It's the first time I've used the dieting app, and that's all I have anything to compare it with, but I look and feel better, so hey, what are you gonna say? But with that update, let's get into today's episode. And today's episode is inspired by a YouTube video that I watched on one of my favorite YouTube channels called Gray Matter Lifting. Joe Gray runs the site and the channel. He's also the moderator over at Our Home Gyms. One of my favorite channels for a couple of reasons. Number one, he is one of the few of us out there who actually uses the gear that he reviews. Imagine that. He doesn't just unbox it and then go, here's a couple of cool things about it, you should buy one. Like we know several channels who do that, right? And it's nice to watch somebody who's actually, because you get insights about this stuff that you just don't get from anybody else. The second thing that I like is he's not out there reviewing the same stuff that you see everywhere. I can always count on whatever he's gonna review on his channel, that it's gonna be unique. It's gonna be something I haven't seen reviewed on 50 other channels or on 20 other websites. It's a really good channel to follow. So I'm not affiliated with him in any way. I don't make any money if you subscribe to his YouTube channel, but I think you should subscribe. It's a really good follow, and it really, if you like this home gym stuff, he's got some really good information, and I know what his plans are coming up for this year. I can't wait for his new videos to come out. He's got some really good stuff that's gonna apply to my gym build, and I guarantee it's gonna apply to your gym build as well. But the reason I bring up Gray Matter Lifting, he just made a video, and the basic crux of the video is that he lifted, I think, like a 1,500 pound total. For those of you who don't know what that is, it's the deadlift, squat, and bench press. Add your weights together, how much you lift. It's a lot of weight. It's way more than I can lift. And he did it all with a $50 barbell. And the point was that people tend to overthink this stuff. People tend, especially manufacturers, right? Manufacturers like to make us all think that, well, if you're gonna curl with your right hand, you need this type of dumbbell. And if you're gonna curl with your left hand, you need this type of dumbbell. And if you're gonna curl with your eyes closed, then you're gonna need to wear this special shoe. And then before you know it, your gym is filled with stuff like this. But anyway, for those of you listening, I pointed at my barbell wall with an unnecessary amount of barbells on it, unless you are an aficionado. So I do want to point that out. He points that out in his video too. What we're going to talk about today, look, if this is your hobby like it is mine, I love this stuff. I am not ashamed to buy more barbells. I'm going to probably buy more barbells very soon because that's my jam. That's what I like. My other hobbies, like taking my dogs to the dog park and disc golf, don't cost a lot of money. So I spend my disposable income on this stuff. And if that's you, then more power to you. I don't want to talk anybody out there out of doing that. However, most people could benefit from the advice on that particular video, which is just buy a damn barbell and start lifting, right? However, I do have a couple of nits to pick with his video. And while I get the idea and the spirit of the video, which is don't overthink things, right? Don't overthink your purchases. Don't think that you need 50 of anything. Don't think that you need to look at 700 different options before you, just all of this stuff works. You can lift, you pick the heavy weight up, you put the heavy weight down, you do it 10 times, you rest, you do it 10 more times, right? I mean, it's not that difficult. And we like to overcomplicate things. So I get the point of the video, which is to just buy a bar. They're all the same, just buy a bar, right? Well, I kind of don't agree with that. And the analogy that I'll use is, I could walk to California and I'll get there, like I'll get that result, but I would rather fly. So call me crazy, I'm gonna jump on a plane and go to California. I live in Illinois, it's gonna take a really long time to walk there. Now, the end result is both the same, right? We're both lifting weights. We're both going to California. However, I really think that some attention needs to be paid to how you get to California. And I think some attention needs to be paid to the type of barbell that you buy and the type of rack that you buy and the type of weights that you buy. Now, you don't need to overanalyze, but you don't want to waste your money either, right? And that's the point of today's episode, is helping you guys walk the line between not overanalyzing, but also not wasting your money. And we're gonna use barbells and racks and all kinds of examples, but hopefully by the end of the episode, if you are one of those folks who aren't just a big dork and just like to buy everything because it's fun, and I'd like to encourage you who aren't there yet to get there, because it is fun. But outside of that, for those of you just looking to build a home gym, I wanna kind of give you guys some tips and some strategies so that you like I said, you don't end up sitting in front of your computer with 72 different tabs open and 86 different barbell options just to buy a bar. And at the same token, I don't want you to just jump on Amazon and just buy any bar there, or go to Walmart and buy any bar there, because you're gonna waste your money. And let's talk about why. And one little note before I start, this is a huge topic, guys. So as usual, please fill in the missing information in the comments below. I am not gonna cover everything by a mile that needs to be covered on this topic. I'm gonna try and hit the things that I think are important, but whatever I miss out on or whatever I leave out, please leave those down in the comments. The comment sections of these videos are really awesome. I love you guys' feedback. It's always valuable. And I really think that it helps folks who are using these podcasts down the road for research. So please do that. Now, the first question is, like I said, I wouldn't just go to Amazon or Walmart and just buy it. It's like, why not just go and just buy the cheapest one, right? Especially since I look on Amazon and every Mikolo rack has a great review, every X-Mark barbell has a great review, every major fitness weight plate has a great review, every RipFit suspension trainer has a great, RipFit suspension trainer is actually pretty good. But anyway, you get it. Everything's got a 5-star review, right? And so it's easy to think that, well, these have great reviews. Why wouldn't I just spend $300 on this, sports-centric rack when why would I spend more on something by somebody else? And especially with all these reviews and all these people saying all these wonderful things about it. So I want to start by just giving you some overarching kind of just advice on going by reviews. And I made a couple of notes here. And the first one is, nobody likes to admit that they wasted their money. Nobody's going to go on, at least not many people are going to go on and write these reviews where they go, I probably should have bought a Rep Fitness rack. I probably should have saved up some money about it. No, because nobody likes to admit that they made a mistake in this world. Everybody's going to be like, I bought the Mikolo, so I'm going to fight to the death that it's the best rack, even though I know it's not. So nobody's going to, or very few people are going to kind of give you the advice of, I bought something, it was a mistake, I probably should have done something different. Again, one of the reasons why I like Gray Matter Lifting's channel and other people's channels and what I try to do here, which is you want to look for people that actually have used the stuff and have an opportunity to use other stuff. And that's the next point about these reviews. Most of these reviews, the folks who are writing them have never had anything else. So whatever they have is better than the giant error that they had before, right? Like they had a big empty space in their garage. Now they've got this really cool looking thing and they're like, this is great. This is the best one I've ever had, which is a true statement because it's the only one they ever had. And I also need you to consider when they write the review. When do most of those people write those reviews? Like 5 minutes after they built it, because they built it, it's shiny. It's like when you get your new car, right? You haven't driven it yet. And everything's shiny, everything works great. None of the knobs have fallen off yet. So you're like, this is a great car. Man, thing is awesome. It's shiny and new and it's cool and it's got lights and whistles and bells and I can't wait to work out on it. You see those in reviews all the time, like, this thing's awesome. I can't wait to work out on it. And it's like, so you're writing a review and you've never worked out on it? And that's why you can't go by what a lot of these people say. And I'm including, even though Joe monitors the Our Home Gym Reddit forum where there's a ton of really knowledgeable people in there, there's also a lot of people in these forums who, like I said, they're just like, I bought this one and it's the best because I want to think that I'm the best. And look, it's human nature. I don't want to sound like I'm being a whatever towards those people. I don't want to sound like I'm talking down to people like, because I generally don't feel that way. But I just want to give you guys some insight that when you're looking for advice, just be careful who you take advice for and understand where they're coming from and the capacity with which they have to give you advice. And that is why I don't recommend going and buying your whole gym on Amazon or Walmart or Costco or any of those other places. Because honestly, you're gonna be disappointed. So where do you look? So you wanna look at channels who actually use this stuff. And I'll give you a short list of those guys later. I'll add myself in that list, of course, because I do focus on doing that, but you wanna start there. And the reason for that is when you actually use the stuff, there is a difference between the $50 barbell and the $400 barbell. Even to the most novice home gym person, there's a difference, and especially based on how you're gonna use it, you're going to see and feel the difference, and you're either gonna love what you bought because those differences suit your training style, or you're gonna hate what you bought because those differences don't suit your training style. And when you buy stuff without regard for doing any research at all, and you're like, just buy a damn barbell, what happens is you can have one of two things happen. You can either buy something that's too cheap, or it's wrong for your training. And both of those are issues, and sometimes you end up with both, right? So let's talk about too cheap real quick first, because it's not a long topic. The drawbacks of buying cheap. Number one, it falls apart over time. Go back and watch the last episode of or 2 episodes of the podcast ago, and where I talk about one of the brands that's no longer in my gym and that I'm not legally allowed to talk about. And the reason for that is because all of their stuff, nice way to put it, fell apart over time. In 4 months, their rack started bending out of square. There was rust on the inside of it. The Smith machine really started just wobbling uncontrollably. The cables were fraying to the point where they were gonna need to be replaced real soon. Just like problem after problem after problem after problem. So that shiny new car with all the bells and whistles, all the bells and whistles fell off of this car. And I'm not super happy with it. So when you go too cheap, you risk things that look nice up front, but they don't last. And we need this stuff to last because I want you guys to train for the rest of your life. So you need to keep that in mind as you're buying this stuff. Especially since you can spend it, in this day and age, you can spend the same or maybe just a little bit more and get a much better product. It used to be, you know, when Amazon first came, Amazon's done a great job of training us, right guys? That everything's cheaper on Amazon. Well, I've got news for you. Everything's not cheaper on Amazon anymore. Everything's kind of crappier on Amazon for the most part, but everything's not cheaper. Like most other sites have figured out that if they don't price things at or around where Amazon is for the similar quality, they're not going to be able to stay in business. And then other companies just go, hey, we're not trying to make cheap stuff. Like I don't want to buy cheap gym equipment for a lot of reasons like we're talking about right now. Also, customer service and warranty is going to be better on better stuff. So again, another reason not to buy cheap stuff is when you do have those problems, you get cease and desist letters and say, don't tell anybody, we're not going to fix the problem. We're just going to shut you up and sell it to other people instead. I'm not going to let up on these people until I'm not salty anymore, which may be a little while. Again, if you don't know what I'm talking about, go back 2 episodes ago, watch the intro and see what I mean. And the last point is, most of the time when people buy cheap, you know, there's that buy nice, buy twice, which appears in my comments all the time. But when you buy inexpensive up front, most people, if you do stick with it for a lifetime, you end up replacing it anyway. So it makes sense to just spend a little more time up front and just buy the right thing to start off with. Now, notice I said buy the right thing, not buy the most expensive thing, not do 80 hours of research, not look at every single one of the 84 different barbells that Rogue Fitness sells and try and decipher which one is the ideal barbell for you. It's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is just buying the right thing, which implies not buying the wrong thing. So here's the areas where buying the wrong thing really comes to bite you. This is where I think the rubber hits the road. And this is where I really disagree with the Gray Matter lifting video, which is, I don't think you should just buy a damn barbell and move on. I really think that when you just do that, you end up buying the wrong thing in a lot of cases. And I've got some very specific stories of people who had to buy twice because they bought the wrong thing to start off with. And the first one is when you buy something and you realize after your return policy is up, or when you can't return it, because who's gonna return a rack, that it's not right for your use. And I want to use racks as an example. You see a lot of people online say, you don't need to buy a, in fact, I had an interaction with somebody on one of my recent videos about this. You don't need to buy a 3x3 rack. That's ridiculous. Don't tell people that they should buy a 3x. You can get by with a 2x2 rack, no problem. And yeah, if you don't lift a lot of weight, if you make sure that you keep hundreds and hundreds of pounds on the thing to weigh it down, if you do this, if you do that, if you don't mind this, if you don't mind the thing tipping when you re-rack anything over a couple hundred pounds, yeah, you could get by with a 2x2 rack, but you don't find those things out until after you buy it. And look, if you're lifting less weight than that, which a lot of people do, and a lot of people building a home gym who aren't looking to build a big fancy home gym aren't lifting a ton of weight, they just want to get in shape. You know, they're not squatting a ton, they're not deadlifting a ton, they're not bench pressing a ton. Yeah, for those folks, maybe a 2x2 might be okay. But for most people, a 3x3 rack is going to be better because it's better suited to people who are going to be lifting weights for a long period of time. I guarantee you that even though a lot of people have started with 2x2 racks, everybody who starts with a 2x2 rack and lifts more than a year, if it's in the budget, they upgrade to a 3x3 rack at some point. Almost every single person. I know there's gonna be a bunch of people in the comment that go, I still have my 2x. I get it. Like, sometimes there's no reason to replace it. Sometimes it works just fine. But on the whole, most people end up upgrading. So that's a really good example of buying what's right for your training and the repercussions of not buying the right thing. The second one that I've seen a lot, which is people who watch a lot of YouTube videos on barbells and they see everybody go, this knurl's not aggressive enough, this knurl's not aggressive enough, this knurl's not aggressive enough. I remember when the Rep Fitness Power Bar EX came out, and Coop over at Garage Gym Reviews said it was his favorite knurl that had ever come out next to the knurl on the Kabuki Power Bar, and he loved it, and a bunch of people bought that bar, and a bunch of people hated that bar because that is not the right bar for an all-around barbell. Most people, and we'll talk about this a lot more in the next episode, most people, I would say 95+% of all people who train at home are only ever going to own or buy one barbell. Because for most people, that's all you need. And again, back to the gray matter lifting, yes, just buy a barbell and move on. Don't buy any barbell, but one barbell will suffice for most people. And if you buy that one barbell and you're like, that's the one I should buy because Coop said it's the best knurl, and you get this sharp little pointy daggers glued to, you might as well take that bar and roll it in glue and broken glass for most people because that's how comfortable it is for people who aren't avid lifters. So when you just run out and buy something and you get something like that, then you end up with an expensive bar, right, that you're not going to be able to use for everything, and you're not going to enjoy it, and you're not going to work out, and it's going to be just a bad situation all around. So there's a couple of examples of when you don't do at least a little bit of research that you end up buying something that doesn't meet your needs. The second kind of repercussion of buying wrong is you're buying the wrong stuff for the movements that you're doing. And just real quickly, you know, I see people just maybe go out and buy a bar because it's a well-rated bar and it's got a nice center knurl on it, but they want to do cleans and snatches and things like that just a center knurl isn't conducive for because it'll scrape up your chest or it won't be comfortable. The knurl's too aggressive for doing snatches, and as the bar moves, it's just not the right bar for the movement, right? And the opposite works too. Buying an Olympic lifting bar for somebody who's just going to do the big 5 power lifts, then you're missing the center knurl. The sleeve spin is too much for some people. The knurl's not aggressive enough. So that's something else that can happen like that. Another really good example is just going out and just buying a bench, right? A bench is a bench, right? You just need to be able to lay down on it, and people will buy a bench with like what's called a 4-post design where there's 2 feet at the bottom, 2 feet at the top. And then they want to work on their bench press, but those 2 feet at the bottom are always in the way of their feet. They didn't do at least enough research to know to buy what's called a 3-post bench with just a single post at the foot of the bench. So those are a couple of quick examples of, where if we just jump too quickly and we buy the wrong thing, those are some things that can happen to us. Now, let's talk about how to avoid those things. Now, how to fix cheap. You can't fix cheap, but you can avoid cheap. Number one, just avoid cheap. You're going to hear me say this on pretty much every podcast, I think, at this point, which is don't buy your gym gear on Amazon, on Walmart, at Costco. And again, I know people are going to say they love the stuff that they bought at Costco, but honestly, you can spend the same amount of money on a better manufacturer and get a better product, or even if you spend a little bit more, you will be much happier. So that's one way to avoid cheap. The other one is to learn from other people's mistakes like me. So I had this great idea probably 6 months ago that I said, lots of people like to buy cheap, right? There's gotta be something out there that's good, that's cheap. So let me review a bunch of cheap stuff, and I'll bring literally fill my entire garage gym with this cheap budget stuff, and I'll work out on it for 6 months so that you can get a good look at what happens when somebody actually trains on this cheap stuff. And the lesson that I learned is that I just wasted 6 months of my life. So in no uncertain terms. Now again, I've got some RipFit reviews coming out. It's the one thing that I tried that actually, if you have to buy cheap, they're okay. I wouldn't say they're great, but they're the best of the cheap stuff that I was able to find. However, would I ever recommend that somebody buy this cheap stuff? No, I would recommend that you save up. In fact, there's another episode that I put out of this podcast where I talk about the right way to build a garage gym, and that's a piece at a time. I walk you through every piece that you need to buy, what order to buy it in, some programs that you can do during each phase of your build so that you don't ever have to buy everything at once and go cheap. But that's how you fix cheap. You just don't, or you at least look for people who have actually used this stuff and can tell you, hey, it's not bad for going cheap. The bigger one to prevent, or the harder one to prevent, is how not to buy wrong, how not to buy the wrong stuff. So I made some notes on some just common mistakes that I see people make and really some strategies to prevent it. And the first one is, don't try and reinvent the wheel. If somebody tells you something works well, just go with that thing. I talk to so many people that are like, hey, I saw you gave this great review on this barbell. How do you think this other one compares? I think it's not the barbell that I recommended. That's how I think it compares. Like, why are we looking for something different, right? I recommend lots of stuff that I'm not an affiliate for. I don't have a dog in this fight in most cases. I am an affiliate for a lot of things. I do have those links down below now, so use them if you can. I appreciate that. That pays for the channel. But I don't have affiliate links for everything. And I'm gonna recommend what I think is best for you guys no matter what. So when you see an expert, whether it's me, whether it's Gluck, whether it's Joe over at Gray Matter, whether it's Kurt from the Kurt Locker, whether it's Coach Karp from Coach Karp, any of those guys who are good at what they do, they're gonna give you a good recommendation. Don't try and reinvent the wheel. They've given you a good recommendation. Just go with the good recommendation. Don't look for the one that might have, well, this one's got one extra tooth on it and the manufacturer. Just stop, all right? Don't overthink it. Just buy the one that the expert recommended, especially if they've actually used it. And that goes back to the 3x3 rack thing that I was talking about. When you watch all of our channels, unless we're testing something like here, we all are gonna have 3x3 racks. There's a reason for that. We all are gonna have, for the most part, a name brand barbell. We're all gonna have, a name brand bench. So learn from the people who are actually doing this and do this a lot, and don't go, oh, well, I know that everybody I see has one of these 3 brand benches, but I'm gonna try this other one. What do you think? What do I think about that? I think it's not one of those 3 that everybody's using. So again, not to sound like a smart aleck, but sometimes I wonder why people make it harder on themselves than they need to. And like I said, don't overthink things. Just follow what the people who do this for a living or who are doing this and making mistakes on your behalf are doing. The next one, I see this a ton, especially on barbells and racks. Don't get bogged down in specs. Keep in mind that a lot of manufacturers use specs to market to you. And I'll give you a great example. My number 1 recommended basic power bar is the Rep Fitness Delta Basic Bar, I think it's called. It's a great barbell. It's the best one that I can find that's at that price. It's a power bar. So if the power bar meets your needs and that's what you need, something with a center knurl, I think it's a great all-around barbell. And I get people all the time, they go, oh, it's only got a 700-pound capacity. Okay, Arnold, are you lifting 750 pounds? Because if not, why does that matter? Or people will start talking about, well, I read an article that the tensile strength on this barbell should be at least this. Dude, that doesn't matter. First of all, especially on Amazon, again, please stay off Amazon. Here's another reason why. The tensile strength that's listed is most likely not the tensile strength of the bar if you actually went and measured it. So please don't get bogged down in statistics. By the same token, don't get sold on statistics that don't necessarily matter. I'm going to use weight capacity again, but in the area of racks. So a lot of times you'll see racks again on Amazon and go, it's got a 1,000-pound weight capacity. Well, what that means is that if they took a bar and they put 1,000 pounds on it, that it would hold that bar. Drop that bar on the safeties and the rack folds, right? It just folds up. Well, that doesn't work. It doesn't matter that the capacity is listed as a certain number of pounds. What matters is that if you drop that bar and you fail while you're lifting and it hits those safeties, is that rack going to fold up on you? And are you going to need to buy a new rack because your rack is now bent? So there's tons of videos that show this. I know Gluck's made a video like this. I know Coop's made a video like this. Lots of people make videos like this, but don't get sold by statistics alone. So don't get hoodwinked into going, this $300 one has the same specs as this $1,000 one, right? Well, there's a reason one's $1,000. Just don't look at just the specs. The next one is start with the type of training you're gonna do and then buy your equipment to match that. I know a lot of people that they build their gym first and then they're like, okay, well, and again, if you buy a power bar and you decide that you like Olympic lifting, then maybe you bought the wrong barbell. If you bought a 2x2 squat rack thinking that you're gonna do just Olympic lifts and you're not gonna use it very much and you end up really liking powerlifting, again, go back to the episode where I talk about building your gym a piece at a time. One of the benefits of that is that you end up buying the right thing for your style of training because it gives you time to find your style of training before you buy the big expensive stuff. So go back and check that episode. I'll put a link up above and down below to that episode because I think there's some valuable information there to help you avoid some of the mistakes that I'm talking about today. I've already mentioned these guys, and I'm sure there's lots more. Note your favorite channels down below in the comments, but the people that I go to, the people that I look for reviews when I'm looking to buy something myself are Gray Matter Lifting, like I mentioned, Garage Gym Life. John over there does a great job. He actually lifts, he uses the stuff that he buys, he tests a lot of the non-major stuff. Garage Gym Experiment, Jake over at Garage Gym Experiment's been doing that a long time. He's another guy that lifts all the time. He's only really reviewing stuff that he actually uses and bought for himself. He's not afraid to say, hey, I bought this, it didn't work out for what I wanted. I love that channel. He's got a lot of great information over there. I always mention these two guys, Kurt from the Kurt Locker and Coach Carp. Both of those guys lift regularly. They use the stuff that they review. And I'm sure there's a lot more out there. But follow people who actually use the stuff they do. Even Gluck, as big of a channel as he is, and as much as he's grown, he's still, at this point, and Gluck, keep this up, man, because this is one of the reasons I love you, man, is that he actually uses the stuff. You can tell by his reviews that he's trained on it, when he's trained on it, and you want to look for channels like that. Not these people who have, like there's some people that I can think of that have 5 power racks in their garage, all from the same manufacturer, and they walk around talking. Dude, you can't have possibly used those 5 power racks in the 3 weeks since you've gotten them. How are you doing reviews on these things? So look for people who actually review the stuff. Speaking of that, one thing that you can look for is trends. Look for brands that people that across different channels review a lot. Like a good one that I can think of now is Black Widow Training. It's a company that not a lot of people have heard of, but if you watch a lot of these smaller channels, you'll start to notice that, hey, this guy recommended a Black Widow piece. This Exponent Edge is another one. Clevabuilt's another one. So these companies that you see recommended on a bunch of different channels, that's a pretty good clue that that's probably a good company to buy from. And that brings me to my last point, which I think if you just follow this last piece of advice, you can avoid all of this stuff, which is just shop from reputable companies. If you were just to limit your shopping to just a reputable company, and I'll give you like 5, okay? If you were to go and say, I'm gonna build my entire gym, I'm gonna do it all on one site in one cart, and you stuck to Rep Fitness, Rogue, Fringe Sport, Titan Fitness, or Bells of Steel, and I'm sure there's more. Again, put them in the comments if I missed somebody. But if you just shopped with just those sites and you bought everything that you needed from just one of those sites, there's a 95 to 98% chance that you would buy the right thing, that you would buy you would buy something that you're happy with, you're gonna buy something that you didn't waste your money on, and you're not gonna have to do, other than Rogue. Rogue's got, in my opinion, has way too much stuff on their site, so just be aware that it's a really hard site to shop if you're not an avid lifter and you don't already know what you're looking for. Eliminating them from that list. Really, everybody else just has a reasonable, like even Rep, who has a lot of bars, they're like, here's our good, better, best power bar. Here's our good, better, best Olympic lifting bar. Here's our 2 budget bars, right? And it's really easy to just select something that works for you, works for your needs. You can start with your movements. And I think that really avoids having to listen to the first 30 plus minutes of this podcast. I should have started with that, right? So with that said, does it really matter? Should you just go buy a damn bar? Should you just go buy a damn bench? Should you just go buy a darn rack and just get it in and start lifting? In part, yes. I agree with Joe's video that you don't want to overthink things. I agree with his video that most of this stuff functionally will do the same thing. Company A's 3x3 rack will hold the same weight and do the same thing as Company B's 3x3 rack, as Company Z's 3x3 rack, because everybody's got a rack. Right? Same thing with barbells, same thing with weight plates. So don't overthink it. Joe, I think you made a great point in that video. But I do think that people should put a little bit more thought into what they buy than just to go buy a damn whatever. But what do you guys think? That was a lot of rambling. I don't even know on this third run through of this podcast if I'm making sense yet. It's much better than the first 2 takes though. So at least you got that going for you. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. I always like to know. I love talking to you guys. Again, thank you so much for watching. If you haven't hit that like button, how could you possibly watch a podcast or listen to a podcast this long and not hit the like button? Because that means you were just sitting there. Did somebody like duct tape you in a chair and make you listen to it? That you didn't like it? I don't know. Let me know. But subscribe to the channel, all that fun stuff. And as usual, I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. And until the next podcast, I'm Tim with GymCrafter.